For the last few years on Copper 90, we've been finding out about football supporter culture all around the world. For me personally, my love of football is as much about the people in the terraces as it is the players on the pitch. But one thing we haven't focused on is the history of English supporter culture, and in particular one incredibly influential movement that started in the 70s and still resonates today: casuals. I want to look into the history of how it got so big and why so many younger football fans aspire to carry on the cult. To get a better understanding of casual culture, I've come out here to the Victoria Tavern in the East End of London, where I'm going to speak to Grant Fleming, who was around when casual culture all began. Casual culture, what is it exactly?
It's just something that I would say you couldn't define as much as, say, mod or skinhead. But it's linked to football, and it's a fashion that grew out of football supporters' identities. You had youth who didn't really want to identify themselves as particularly from one team. And interestingly enough, I mean, if you think of the sort of the dark days of football hooliganism, is these really, really smart kids and really expensive clothing, having massive tear-ups in the middle of the street.
It wasn't just defined though to fashion as well, casual culture. Obviously there was music as well, of which you were highly involved. Was there a specific genre?
You could cite the Jam particularly because they had a big mod following. So it wasn't much to kind of, you know, go over from being a mod into a casual. The stuff in Liverpool, like Teardrop Explodes, Echo and the Bunnymen, you know, Liverpool fans were obviously on top of that. So there's all these little sort of substratas of it. This culture has become kind of exposed in the media. We've had the movies, we've had the books. So there's something to refer to now. There's something to copy. There won't be subcults like that ever again, because nothing has a chance to grow and mutate in a way that an underground scene would. It had time to grow and just become something organic.
What was your piece?
I'll go my Sambas, just because I loved them. You know, and I've always been Adidas, so I always identified by that, I guess.
I think that's a good way to finish it. Thank you so much, Grant. Appreciate it, mate. In speaking to Grant, it became clear that the casual scene wasn't just confined to the capital. In fact, the continental success of many northern teams like Liverpool in the 70s and the consequential travel of their fans following them meant many claim that the casual scene started in the north. So we've come up to Merseyside to speak to a guy who's still involved in the scene today.
You know, from people that likes my dad and his friends who tell me the stories of going back to the late 70s, early 80s, it really was the dominance of Liverpool Football Club in Europe that allowed them to sort of get out onto the continent and come back with these new clothing that you couldn't get. Some of the local entrepreneurs have got a lot to answer for as well. Guys like Wade Smith, who would go over to the continent and literally come back with van loads of training shoes that you just couldn't get here.
On the subject of, you know, clothes and their accessibility all around the world for whichever brand you want, that's something you're involved in through your company, is that correct?
I guess so, yeah. I run two clothing websites, one Distant Echo, one called Steeple Pine. Distant Echo was set up back in 2011. I realised that there was brands popping up that was sort of celebrating the football culture, the music scene, brands like 80s Casuals, Casual Connoisseur, Peaceful Hooligan. I did feel at the time that there wasn't a single place where you could get them. It's not just a Merseyside thing, it's not even a domestic thing, it's a worldwide thing. We sell throughout the UK, throughout Europe, sell as far afield as Japan, Argentina, on a weekly basis. And there's people that are buying into this culture. The likes of the clothing still does connect people, but I would say the camaraderie still does exist. There's friendships that are forged in mainland Europe when you're in a corner of a town for a UEFA Cup game and you come across a couple of lads you've never seen before, and immediately you become mates because there's something that connects you. People do like to look quite smart, so they might look at a nylon replica kit with a corporate logo on the front and think, that's not really me, but that smart crew neck jumper with a shirt underneath, that's more me.
What I'm really learning about the casual scene was that whilst yes there were elements of violence within it, it really was about the clothes, the music, and especially that camaraderie that provided you lifelong moments with your mates. But I still want to learn more about it all. So next stop, we're heading to Manchester. Okay, so before we left the northwest, we figured we'd come out here to Moss side, where we're going to speak to a contact called Paul, who was involved in the more extreme side of the casual scene. Paul, first and foremost, ask you, how did you slowly get involved in the casual scene? What year was it? Did you start going by yourself? How did it all start?
I mean, I've always been fascinated by the clothes. I mean, it's the same old story, really. You used to see a lot of the majority of the fans wearing the shirts, and then you get this small group of look like, you know, big, strong-looking men. They used to be the ones that sung the most as well. They used to start the songs off, and obviously, you know, early days I did see bits of trouble in the ground and stuff, and I was obviously fascinated by it as a young lad. First, as a kid, I wanted all the replica kits with the names on the back, and then, you know, as I got older, I started to think, that's not me now. I wanted to get into the, you know, I wanted to be a part of these guys, and I remember wearing the clothes before anyone even knew me.
We were talking earlier about how things have changed. What's that resulted in?
Back in the day, the only time you saw Stone Island was at a football match, pretty much, I'd say. To the point where if you saw a group of lads wearing Stone Island and CP Company, or something along them lines, they were fair game.
I was speaking to Grant about how you just said, at the end of the day, it was just a laugh with your mate. He said it was the best laugh you could ever have.
The scarier it was, the better. I mean, I remember going through all the tube and stuff and bumping into people everywhere you went, and it was just all day, constant, pretty much going off. And I just thought, we got on the train and we come back and we were all a bit bruised and battered, and it was just like the buzz of it. We were scary at the time, but then looking back, I mean, I remember my mate saying, fuck me, I feel like I've just been in the Warriors film. With wearing the clothes and being with them people, there comes the other side, you know, the trouble side of things. You can't wear the gear, turn up and not get your hands dirty. And obviously I did get my hands dirty, and I got really involved to the point where it culminated in me getting serious trouble, wound me up in jail. Looking back now, it probably saved my life in a way, but in another way, I lost a big chunk of my life. Some things I won't do again, but the majority of it I would, because it's, like I say, it's precious memories. I've done that. It's something that not many people can say they've experienced in their lives. I've experienced it. I've made the friends. I've got the scars to prove it. That's the end of it, really. Yeah, no problem.
Grant, Paul and Daniel all played a significant role in the emergence, the rise and the continuation of the casual scene. And whilst they all played different parts at different times, even decades, what I noticed was that they all shared the same beliefs and attitudes. It was all about clothes, music, and most importantly, camaraderie. Whilst no one denied that violence at times could play a part, all three were adamant to make clear that their fondest memories were the times shared with fellow supporters following their club. You come to realise that this subcult really is different to anything else that is attached to the modern game, with the focus on what you're wearing, the music you're listening to, and the people you're hanging out with rather than the game itself. This is what makes it so unique and possibly the last subculture in English football.